Hello guys, it's Alex here again and welcome to this course. We'll be looking at gradients. Gradients, also known as color transitions, is a gradual blending of two or more colors together to form a unique color. Now what this means is that instead of using one color or applying one color to our design, let's say using one color for an object, we apply so many colors, 1, 2 or 3 or more colors together, and these 2, 3 or more colors work together as one unique color. One of the things that makes gradient unique and outstanding is the fact that gradient feels natural. Gradient feels natural because most elements in nature do not have one color. Objects in nature appear or come with multiple colors. Most times colors that are related to each other, that is analogous colors, or colors that are directly opposite each other on the color wheel, like the complementary colors. So let's look at some examples to help you understand how gradient combines colors together.
Let's take a look at this apple here. Looking at this apple, you can easily say this apple is red. But when you take a closer look, you observe that the color of this apple isn't just red. There are other colors that are close to red on the color wheel that is represented on this apple. Let's look closely and see that. Looking here, you can see red, right? While we're going to the head of the apple here, you can see yellow. So you can see this apple actually have two colors together, which is red and yellow. So most objects in nature are made up of more than one colors when you look closely at them. Let's look at another example. This is a leaf, which you normally call green leaf, right? But looking closely at the green leaf and observing the color differences, you can actually notice that there are different variations of green on this leaf. We have a lighter shade of green on what looks like the vein. All these lines here, we have a lighter shade of green here. But going to the tip here, you see we have a darker shade of green. So you see that while we call these leaves green colors, looking closely at them, we'll see different variations or different shades of green on one leaf. Let's look at another example. This is also a leaf as well that is fading away. This leaf that is fading away has several colors on it. You can see this part is reddish or dark orange, while we have this part is absolutely yellow. And you can see that these lines on it that is almost looking like an artery, these lines on it is a bit greenish. All right, so you see that most of these things in nature don't have one color. They have several colors. Let's take a look at fire. If you look closely at this part of fire, you can see white. Then when you take your eyes away, you can see that this part is a light orange. Then when you look at another part again, which is here, you can see that it is dark orange. I have to take example from fire because this is what we almost see every single day. So let's take a look at this sky at the beach, a sunset, a beach sunrise. You can see that, first of all, if you take a look at the cloud, you can see that the cloud has several different colors. The clouds here are a bit golden, while here has some shades of purple on it. So you can see how natural elements or elements in nature at different points are usually made up of several colors that work together as one. So let's look at another sky. Let's look at another picture of a sky. Here the sky has displayed several colors. Here we have blue, here we have purple, here we have navy blue, here we have a shade of red, then here we have orange. Here at the bottom here we have yellow. So you see how nature has mixed several colors together in the sky, and all these colors are working together as one, and it's beautiful. Now look at another sky. You can look at the sky here and say this is a blue sky, right? But when you look closely at the blue in the sky, you realize that there are different shades of this blue. You can see that at the bottom here we have more of white, and at the top of here we have a lot of blue. So you can see that the white at the bottom here is the transitioned into blue at the top. So here basically two colors were blended together in nature, but then we call it the blue sky. But then looking closely, we have confirmed that actually we have two colors here, the white at the bottom and the blue at the top. So gradients are expressed a lot in nature. If you look around and begin to notice natural elements around you, you begin to realize how common gradients are in nature, but you have never noticed it until now. So since we mix different colors together to form a unique color, gradient also gives off a feeling of uniqueness, because this is not just one color. These are several colors mixed together to give out a unique color. So gradient, when applied to a design, makes a design look and feel unique. Gradient also are used to add depth to your design, create an interesting texture for your background, because we use a lot too as backgrounds in design. So let's quickly jump into this tutorial and show you how gradients are created in Photoshop. First of all, there is a tool, a gradient tool in Photoshop, and that's what we are going for. This is the tool here. Once you hover on it, instantly Photoshop gives you a little preview of what the tool does. It tells you here it's gradient tool and gives you a short description as well. Creates a gradual blend between colors, and the shortcut is letter G on the keyboard. So all I have to do is to click on the tool. Once you have clicked on the tool, you see that our cursor has changed to something that looks like almost a plus sign. You can see, okay, let me take it out from the white artboard over the black area so you can see the cross sign that our cursor has changed to. So all you have to do is to left click with your mouse and drag out. As you can see, I quickly dragged out across the artboard, right? While holding down on my left key, and release your hand. And here we have our gradient. This color that we applied here, if you noticed, was already shown here. The sample of what the color that we have was already shown here. Like, let me hold the Ctrl Z to go back. Immediately we clicked, let me click on this move tool here so that we take away that gradient tool options that appeared here before. So let's go back to the gradient tool and hit the tool. So you can see that instantly we have several options and settings up here. Here instantly shows us the color we have in our gradient tool to apply. So once I hold down on my left key to drag across the artboard, another way I can also apply the gradient tool on the laptop is to double click on, double click and hold on my touchpad, then drag. All right. So, and I double clicked and I'm dragging out and I release my hand. See that I have applied the gradient again on my artboard. So this gradient was applied on our background layer. Look here, you can see that we applied it on our background layer. Let me hold the Ctrl Z and undo this so that you can actually apply this on a new layer. You know, I've always advised you that each effect or new object you put in Photoshop should always be on a new layer. It's easier for you to control your design that way. It gives you control over your design. So I clicked on this icon here, new layer icon, and now we have a new layer. So I'm applying the gradient once again on this layer instead of the background layer. Now at the top here we have different types of gradients. All right, so this is a linear gradient, this particular one we applied, because we have a linear transition between this color, which is purple, dark purple, to dark orange. All right, so this is linear gradient and this is radial gradient. So let's click on radial gradient for you to see how it looks like. So while we have chosen that, let's double click and drag across the artboard. You can see here that our gradient or color blending is now in a circular form. That is why it is called radial gradient. It blends the colors for you in a circular form. All right, so and the circle starts from the place you hold down. So if I choose to drag from outside, it gives us a different effect altogether. Then here we have another type of gradient, which is angle gradient. So once I click on this and let me double click and drag my mouse, my mouse, yes, and let me see what I get. You see this type of gradient. So the gradient starts here in this type of gradient. The gradient starts from one straight line and moves round and stop at that same straight line here. Then we also have another one, which is reflected gradient. Let's see how that looks like. Okay, so let's try this other one, which is diamond gradient. This particular gradient blends colors and gives them the effect of sparkling effects, like the kind of sparkle or effect you see on a diamond. That's why it's called a diamond gradient. So at the top here, you can also see the blend mode. You can also choose the blend mode of the gradient tool. You can choose the opacity. You can choose to reverse the blend mode. Like this, we have, like if I click on the reverse, like right now we have the dark purple at the center and we have the orange outside. So if we choose to reverse this, if we click on it, it instantly changes that for us. We'll now have the orange at the middle and we'll now have the dark purple at the edge of our artboard. That's what the reverse does for us. So now we have looked at the settings here. for the gradient, let's go and see how we can actually create gradient in Photoshop, because we have been just working with this colors, that the color gradient we have here, but we haven't created our own by ourselves. So once you click on this arrow down here, instantly Photoshop has given us a lot of presets. These are the preset. By presets I mean the settings or gradient settings that came with Photoshop directly. So we can choose any of these if it meets what we want, but then we can choose to click, instead of click on the arrow down, we can choose to click on the colors directly. Once you click on the colors directly, it instantly opens up a gradient editor panel. Here at the gradient editor panel, we have access to more colors. Here is the slider where we decide the colors we use for our gradient. So the slider at the bottom here, if you notice, we have one at the bottom, one at the top. At this edge too, we have one at the bottom, one at the top. The sliders at the bottom allows us to change the colors and how much we want the colors to be mixed with each other. Then the sliders at the top allows us to change the opacity of these colors we have chosen. And by opacity, by the understanding of our opacity throughout our courses till now, we know that opacity talks about transparency or how intense a color is. So let's click here, let's choose our color for this part of the gradient. So I click here and instantly the color picker tool comes up, and let me choose let me choose red. Let me try something. Let me choose red, and I come over here. So to choose color for here, I can do that by clicking here, then come over here, color, to click here to open the color picker tool, or I can just directly double click on the slider here. So once I double click on the slider, it still opens up the color picker tool for me. So I prefer to do that because it's faster and shorter. It's a shortcut. So here I chose red, the other part. So here let me try pink. So I'm okay with this pink, and then I hit OK. So once I double click on my mouse and drag out again, I instantly get a different gradient to use for my design. So I can choose to use this with these gradient settings, or I can go to the linear gradient setting and apply the gradient from there. So let's zoom out a little bit by holding my control on the keyboard and hitting the minus key. So I can choose to. There's one thing about the gradient tool. It applies the gradient from the angle you drag from. So if you notice, we've been dragging from the middle here, and let me decide to drag from the bottom. So as I've dragged from the bottom, you see how it has applied the color gradient from the bottom up. So if I decide to apply from the side, our gradient also changes direction as well. So I can decide to apply it from an angle like this, maybe because I want the colors to be applied from the angle, and instantly it gives me that angle application of the gradient. So I can decide to do it from the bottom here, and I still get the same thing. All right. So you can actually be creative with this. Apply this from any angle you feel is convenient for your design. So let's go back to these settings and play more around with our gradient editor. So right here in the gradient editor, we have been playing with two colors. One beautiful thing about the gradient editor is that you can add as many color as you want and no one is stopping you. As I said, you can actually add more colors to your gradient, and you can do that by hovering to this color slider, and once you move your hand down, once you move your mouse, you notice that your mouse instantly changed to a hand. So once your cursor, sorry, not your mouse, once your cursor instantly changes to a hand, then you can just click once, and once you click once, another slider is instantly introduced. Another slider is introduced to the colors. Here with the slider, you can choose, once you double click, you can choose another color you want. We used red before. We used red before. Now I have to apply another color that is not red and is not pink as well. It's somewhere in between red and pink. So let me try magenta. All right. If you notice, I'm using these colors that are close to each other on the color wheel. So let's apply that. I'm using colors that are close to each other on the color wheel. So these are actually analogous colors. So from the top to the bottom, we have red, magenta, and pink. So that's that about the gradient tool. You can choose to add more colors if you wish to. By all you have to do is just to hover on here, and once you see your cursor change to a hand, you just click. Then you keep adding more and more colors. But you can also delete this as well. If you feel that the colors you've added are too much, then you want to delete it. All you have to do is to double click on any of the sliders and drag it out. You see, I hold down and drag out, and they keep disappearing. Drag out, drag out, double click and drag down. So if you don't want to be double clicking and dragging down, you can quickly double click on the slider you want to remove and come over to this delete button here and click delete. It instantly goes away. You can click on anyone, come here and click delete, it goes away. Click on anyone, come here and click delete, and it goes away. So if you noticed, when we move our sliders, or when we click on any of our sliders, something shows up in between the two sliders, which is this tiny circle here, which is called color midpoint. This tiny circle here is used to determine the areas that either of the colors will cover. For example, if I want on the gradient editor to have more of red and less of pink, all I have to do is to double click on this midpoint and move to this other area and move to the pink area. And now looking at the colors, you see that we now have more of red from this area to up to here, and we now have just a little pink. All right. We can also increase that as well if we want. Then we can also do that to the, if we don't need a lot of red, we can also do that to the red as well. So I slide down and stop here. Now we have more of pink and less of red for us to apply on the gradient tool. So let's hit OK and apply that as well. So you see, we instantly have more of red and just a tiny pink somewhere here. So let's change that. Let's click on this slider at the bottom and change it to the middle. So if we are not sure of where the middle is, we can actually come to the location here and type in 50. 50 is the middle. All right. So this location also is used to control the color midpoint. So we can put in 90. All right, to change the color midpoint with numbers instead of using these sliders to move them, or instead of using our mouse to move them, we can choose numbers instead, or can use numbers instead. So let me bring it back to the middle, which is 50. So this is our color slider now. If we somehow fall in love with it a lot and decide we're going to save this so we can be applying in our subsequent project, not when we want to apply again in the future, we begin to start setting it again, we can decide to save this outrightly as one of our presets here that we can use anytime we want. We can just click on this new here. All right, so once we click on this new, Photoshop instantly saves this color gradient for us to use in our future designs. So you see that as I click the new, I instantly have the color here added up for me. It wasn't here before. All right, so I have to click OK now. So let's say I have, let me click on the under preset here. Okay, let's say, let me undo this. So I just deleted that layer. Let me create a new layer. So let's say we want to apply the gradient tool now on a new layer for a new project. All I just have to do is go over to, on my gradient tool, go over to the gradient tool, go over to this color, click on it, and go straight to the color that we saved before. And once I click on it, you see it loads up and I click OK. I have the colors here instantly, and I quickly move my slider, and here I have my gradient color being applied for me. So this is almost like a shortcut. It helps your work faster instead of me to go ahead and start creating this color blend from scratch. Now you've seen how the gradient tool works and how to apply it and how to save it and create your own custom gradient tool for future use. If you actually notice, as we apply the gradient tool, it has been appearing all over our artboard. But what if we don't want that? We just wanted the gradient tool to actually get applied maybe on a tiny area of our artboard. How are we going to do that? This is where we apply our knowledge of clipping mask. All we have to do is to go over to the rectangle tool, then hold down and create a rectangle at that very area that we want our gradient to be applied. So it can be a rectangle, or it can be circular by using the ellipse tool. I think I'll try the ellipse tool. Let me use the ellipse tool instead. So now I've applied the ellipse tool by holding down and dragging out. To ensure I'm actually having a circle, I have to hold down my shift key on the keyboard. so that I'll have a circle with consistent shape or consistent radius. So now I have white over the area. Since I just want the gradient tool to be applied inside this white area. With our knowledge of the clipping mask, all we have to do is to move the layer of the circle, which is this one here, move the layer below the layer of the gradient. Now we have the ellipse layer right below, or the circle layer right below the gradient layer. Then I hold the Alt on my keyboard and quickly move my mouse in between the two layers, and instantly my cursor changes from a hand to the clipping mask icon, and I click. So once I click, just as we've been taught the clipping mask course, our gradient instantly snaps into the circle. So this is what I actually want, and now we have our gradient in the circle and not on the entire artboard. I can actually still choose to adjust the gradient if I don't like the part of it that is showing on the circular area. All I have to do is to choose the gradient tool, and I'll make sure that the gradient layer is highlighted. So once I do that, my cursor instantly changes to a plus sign, and I reapply the gradient again. So, and here I keep applying from the angle I want until I get what I want. So this is beautiful. I'm comfortable with this right now. So now I have seen what gradient is, how it works, and how we can apply them in Photoshop or even create them in Photoshop. Let's quickly see some example, or a very few examples of real life applications of the gradient tool in graphic design. This is where gradient is used to create an attractive background for this young man. And these colors that are used here are almost like the colors we have been using in our examples, although here there are three colors. If we look right at this area, you see a shade of purple. Then at the middle we have pink, and at the edge we have something that looks like peach. The peach color, yeah. So we have three colors here that are used as a colorful background for this young man. So this is a good example of where gradient is used as a background, and it's quite attractive. So let's see another example. Here is used as a background as well. Here the gradient used by the designer is just made up of two colors, just white and sky blue. And here, if you notice, at the middle we have more of the white, and at the edge we have more of the sky blue. So let's check out another design. Here is a food poster design for burger, and here the designer used the gradient tool, or use the gradient subtly. Just use it in a way you might not notice. Look at this red area. If you look at the edge of the red area, you notice that the reds are darker at the edge, almost looking like ox blood. But if you look at this area that is immediately around the burger, you see that the colors here are brighter than the ones at the edge. So the artist or the designer here used two shades of red, pepper red here and ox blood, a darker shade of red, or let me just say a brighter shade of red and a darker shade of red. So let's look at another example. Here gradient has been used to create a pattern, a background pattern, and this is one brand that uses gradient a lot. That's how the Instagram uses gradient for their logo and for their brand. Here they use purple, here they use um orange, dark orange, here they use magenta. In fact, the Instagram guys used a lot of colors for their gradient. I think it's about 4 or 5 colors that they put together to create this amazing concept. I think 3 to 5 colors that they put together, yeah, to create this amazing blend of colors. So gradient is beautiful and can make your design unique and stand out when you understand and know how to apply them. And here is one more example of how the gradient is used in pictures or in designs. If you look at this picture, the gradient was applied on the background and also applied on the face of this young man. At the background, we have 2 colors. We have the blue at the top and we have the pink at the bottom. And also on the face of this young man, we have the pink at the left, we have the blue at the right, and we have at the middle, we have white. So these are all how gradients are used in graphics design. So that's that for this course. But before we go, there are 2 resources I want to share with you, which is 2 platforms where you can get access to a lot of gradients that you can apply. A lot of gradients that has been created for you already, that you can just go there, lift them or copy them and apply in your design, instead of maybe having to crack your head and be thinking of the right color blends to create or right color blends to use for your gradient. So the first website is gradient.com, GRABIENT.com. Here the platform has created a lot of gradient for you already. All you have to do is to just copy and apply. So you can see a lot of gradients here. So once you hover, you can even see the colors that actually make up the gradient. So once you hover on this, you see copy CSS this is actually for front end developers, because CSS is a styling language for them. So they are the ones that will make use of this. But here, all you have to do is to come over this area and you can come over to this place and highlight this hash code, this hex code here. This code is called hex code. You highlight it and copy for you as a designer. Then you go straight to Photoshop. Make sure your gradient tool is active. Click on this. I click on this to open my gradient editor. Then I click on my color, double click. Then once my color picker tool is active or is opened, I go to the bottom here and paste that hex code here. All right, so this hex code, every single color in that we apply in Photoshop or anywhere on the internet have all these colors. They all have codes. Each of these colors are represented by codes. So when you want to copy colors, it's better to copy them with their hex code, and this is where you input that hex code. So I click OK. I go back to the website and click on the second. I go back to the website, click on the second color, highlight, and Control C on my keyboard, Control C to copy. Then I go back to Photoshop and I double click on this area. I use Control V and paste it in and click OK. And I click OK here to my gradient editor. So once I come back here and drag out, you see I just recreated that exact gradient that I saw on the website. So you see this gradient here on the website, I've been able to recreate it here for myself in Photoshop. So this is gradient, and there's another platform too, which is web gradient. Web gradient allows us to get ideas for our gradient colors, or get ideas for our gradient. All right. So from all this, if you want to apply, let's say you want to apply this, all you have to do is come over to the bottom here. You see the two colors that were used to create this gradient. Just come here, highlight it, double click and drag to highlight, then hit the Ctrl C on your keyboard and use it, and then, or if you choose to copy this one, double click and drag to highlight. Once the hex code is highlighted, then you quickly go to Photoshop and apply it just the way we did before. All right. So that's that for this course. And as an activity for this course, I need you to do two things. First of all, you need to create your own gradient. I created my own gradient and ended up masking it into a circular, and ended up masking it into a circle. But I need you to create your own gradient and mask it into a rectangle. So you have to use a rectangular tool for that. Then don't use these colors I have used. Go over the platform, the gradient or the webgradients.com, or you can choose any color off the top of your head with your knowledge of the color theory. You can choose any colors which you wish to use, create your own gradient, then screenshot it. Then for the second assignment, I need you to search or look around you or search on the internet. Show me an example of where gradient has been used in nature. I showed you the picture of the sky. I showed you the picture of a leaf. I showed you the picture of another fruit, apple, and how on the body of this fruit gradient has been used in nature. So I need you to show me another example of where gradient has been used in nature. Look around, search on the internet. You can Google, or you can just be observant, look around you and show me, give me an example of where gradient has been used in nature. Then attach the picture and add a little explanation about the colors that have been used on that element in nature. For example, if you choose banana, let's say you choose banana, right? Once you upload the picture of the banana, right under the picture, you tell me that here yellow has been used and here another shade of yellow has been used to create gradient. Or if there are three colors or you have seen on the banana, you point them out. All right, that's what I need you to do. Do these two things and upload for your assignment. See you in the next course.